Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Finland once again, and we're going to have a look at yet another of the beers that arrived in Riku box number 2. So first and foremost, a huge shout out and thank you once again to Riku Sinaxanaho, my Finnish beer mule who lives in Oulu in the very northwest of the country. Lovely guy, very knowledgeable about his beers, and he's picked me out some pretty awesome ones to review for you here on the channel so far. And it's thanks to him that you guys are getting to enjoy a steady stream of Finnish beer reviews. So Riku, massive thank you to you once again for making this review possible. So the beer that we're going to have a look at today is from another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. Riku picked this one for me because he knew that I was going through a little bit of a lager phase, and this apparently is one of the best pilsners that you're going to find in Finland. So I think this could be a really interesting one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So for this review then, we are going to go to a little place called Lappeenranta in South Karelia in the southeast of Finland, and I will apologise in advance for any bad Finnish pronunciations in this video. Very difficult language to pronounce properly, but yeah, for this one we are going to have a look at my first beer from Panimoyhtiö Tuju, if I have that right. So this particular beer is called the Pilsnero. It comes in at 5.2% ABV, and Tuju are describing this one as a killer pils. So yeah, basically a kind of hazy pilsner, I guess you could say. So yeah, this one I think should be a really interesting beer. If memory serves me correctly, this will be my first pilsner beer from Finland. The only other one that you could probably compare this to that I've had would be at Lappeenranta, but that's, you know, a kind of macro premium lager, I guess we could say. So yeah, this one will be my first pilsner, I think, from Finland. So that is a pretty cool thing in itself. I think it's maybe the second or third lager beer that I've had from them though. We had Lappeenranta, we had a Doppelbock last time as well, and I think there's maybe been one more lager beer, come to think of it too. I think we had a Schwarzbier from Sari in Oulu actually. So yeah, nice to get my first pilsner from Finland, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer. Tuju, as I've heard, are very, very well respected. So yeah, definitely looking forward to this one. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Panimoyhtiö Tuju. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Finnish beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to quite regularly at the moment because we still have a lot of things to go through that Riku's given me. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Panimoyhtiö Tuju. So, Panimoyhtiö Tuju are based in Lappeenranta in South Karelia in the southeast of Finland, as I mentioned to you earlier. But the company was founded back in 2015 by Tuomas Mäkiniemi, who has a background in restaurants, and also Jukka Mononen, who has a background in healthcare. He was a specialist nurse from what I understand, but they were joined a little bit later on by Samu Koskinen, who is a shareholder these days, and he kind of takes part in the business side of things. But this brewery is actually very small in its capacity, and it operates a British-built 500-litre brew kit, and they only produce in the region of 50,000 litres of beer per year. As I've told you in previous videos, from what I understand, the Finnish tax system for alcohol producing companies is it's banded, and it's based on the amount of volume that you produce in a year. So certain breweries, I think, won't grow beyond a certain size, if you like. But at the brewery, it's Tuomas that is the main brewer, and apparently their New England IPAs are regarded as some of the best in Finland, but they apparently only make these for restaurants because they had some bad experiences with oxidation and things when they were bottling this style. So the New England IPAs apparently only go to bars and restaurants from what I understand. But their lower ABV beers can be found in supermarkets all across Finland, and they've also begun to export their beers to a few countries as well from what I understand. I think it was Russia and maybe Spain that they were exporting to, if I remember correctly. But that's come as a result of some collaborations that they've been doing with Coolhead Brew who are doing some very nice beers, by the way. I recommend that you check them out. But yeah, very small brewery, these guys, and as of March 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, the brewery have produced around 190 different kinds of beer. So yeah, pretty cool actually. And I think the main reason that they've produced so many is the fact that they are only brewing around 200, basically 500 litre batches and things like this. So yeah, they have released a few different Pilsners from what I saw on the Untappd page. So yeah, this one I think should be pretty nice, and like Riku has told me, this is a style that these guys seem to do very, very well. But yeah, that's all I could really tell you about Panimoyhtiö Tuju. And yeah, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. It's just a very basic website, to be honest with you, so it's probably better that you follow them on Facebook or Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is your history section for this video. Let's get on and have a taste of this beer then. So as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one is a 5.2% Pilsner beer. It's a German style Pilsner, this one actually. So yeah, for those of you that don't know, the Pilsner style originated in the city of Pilsen, which is now the Czech Republic, but it was formerly the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The very first Pilsner beer was Pilsner Urquell. It was developed by a Bavarian brewer who apparently wasn't a very, very nice man. He only lasted about 2 years in Pilsen before he was kind of kicked out and another brewer took over the brewing of the beer. But yeah, Pilsner Urquell is the original Pilsner beer. So Pilsen, as it's known in Czech, or Pilsner was the German name for this city, and that's where the beer style, of course, takes its name from. So the Czech Pilsners, in my experience, or the Czech Pilsens, I should say, tend to be a little bit more kind of yeasty and things like this, a little bit more yeasty and bready, if you like, and generally speaking, you can say that about most of the Czech lagers, whereas the German ones tend to be a little bit kind of crisper and drier and things like this, and sometimes a little bit more bitter. But yeah, I have to say the artwork on this is absolutely fabulous actually. I probably want to keep this bottle actually, my first finished Pilsner. And I do like the scientific theme in there, you know. I was a little bit of a mad chemist making flamethrowers and stuff when I was at school. I got suspended for that, which was great. Happened to be the weekend that Grand Theft Auto 4 came out, but that's another story. But you can see black bottle cap on this one, plain black bottle cap, and you can see down here is the Tuju symbol. It looks a little bit like a fishing hook actually, or some kind of cork or something like that. But yeah, there is the Tuju brewery symbol there. Not sure how well the camera is going to focus on that. But yeah, 330 milliliter bottle, this one. So yeah, it looks pretty nice. Yeah, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm not sure how much I paid for this beer because, you know, Riku just gathers them up for me and sends them in a box, and I send them the money for the beers and the postage, so I have no idea exactly how much this particular beer was. So, you know, what I might do next time actually is I'll ask Riku what I was paying for, you know, each beer and things, so I can tell you guys, because I know there's quite a few people who are interested in the prices of craft beer in different countries. So yeah, I will ask Riku about that next time, because Finland is probably, besides probably Switzerland, I think Finland's the most expensive country that uses the euro, I think. But yeah, I think it is one of the more expensive places in Europe for craft beer actually. But yeah, regardless, the Finnish stuff is pretty good, so I don't care about paying a little bit extra to get a hold of some Finnish beers once a year, you know. So always a bit of a treat, the Finnish stuff. So yeah, as you can see then, and as you would expect, this beer has poured a lovely kind of hazy straw yellow colour. It's actually a very, very rich, very kind of dark yellow colour, this one. You can see that the beer's poured with a little bit more head than it currently has, but that's a lovely kind of frothy, I would say perfect white head. That's not even cream colour, that is perfect white. But yeah, there's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head, and you can see the beer does have a nice natural haze to it, which is what the word Keller would imply. Keller beers tend to be a little bit more yeasty and kind of unfiltered. So yeah, the Pilsner style of course is a lager beer, so bottom fermenting yeast. For those of you that don't know, that is a lower temperature fermentation yeast, you know, usually between about 8 and 12 degrees if I remember correctly. Ales will ferment somewhere between, you know, 14 and 18 degrees. So yeah, those are top fermenting, but yeah, lager beers are bottom fermenting yeasts, and we've already talked a little bit about where the style originated, Pilsner Urquell. things like this. But yeah, in terms of a Pilsner beer, it's a lovely kind of hazy one, this, so it looks more like a kind of Czech Pilsner, if you like, than a German one. The German ones tend to be quite clear in my experience, but it's not really about the appearance, it's more about how the beer tastes. But yeah, it does look pretty good, this one, I have to say. So yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. I'm very curious about this beer. Oh, now that smells bready and yeasty, definitely. Yeah, I think if I was smelling this beer blindly without knowing what it was, I think I would actually struggle to tell you what kind of beer it is. I might think it was, would it be come across as more like a Munich Helles or something like that, or a Czech Svetli, because it's really a very, very yeasty one. But again, you expect this of Keller beers. I could even see myself saying that this was like a Belgian blonde or something like that, just because of how bright the yeastiness in this beer is. So yeah, that's interesting for sure. So yeah, let's try and break down the aroma of this one then and just kind of see how we go. So like I've kind of mentioned to you, you've got some really nice kind of soft kind of white bready notes to the base of this beer. It's got a very kind of, how would you say, it has a very it's got a really big kind of yeasty presence to it. It's not really like banana or clovey or anything like that, like you would get from, say, a wit beer or something like that, but it really just has a kind of bright, soft, fluffy, fresh white bready kind of note out of it. I really like how that side of this beer goes together. So yeah, lots of yeasty presence to this one, but the more you smell of this beer and the more that you adjust to it, you do get a little bit of a bread crusty note. You do get some nice kind of sweet biscuity qualities out of the beer. Yeah, there's definitely a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing out of this, and I do actually get a little bit of a kind of straight up caramel out of this one. You can definitely smell a little bit of that right in the centre of the nose. So yeah, straight up caramel, a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuit, underneath that a smooth white bready character, lovely big kind of fluffy white bready notes. That's the yeast coming out, and you do get a little bit of a kind of bread crusty kind of thing coming out of this. So this is definitely one of the more yeasty Pilsner beers, and even one of the more yeasty kind of light lager beers that I've come across actually. But it does say that it's a Keller Pils, so that kind of makes sense. So yeah, the aroma on the malty, yeasty side of things in this beer is very, very interesting. I have to say, I really like how this one goes about its business. So yeah, aroma of this beer is absolutely lovely. So thumbs up to Panimoyhtiö Tuju for this one. I really wonder if I'm saying that right. Probably not. We'll just call them Tuju from now on. But yeah, the malty, yeasty side of this beer is pretty interesting. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, it's kind of what you would expect. This beer probably is using, Hallertau or Tettnanger hops or something like this, maybe even Czech Sats, Jatas as the Czechs would call it. But it smells more like German hops, to be honest with you, because it's got that nice bright floral character. But yeah, there's a little touch of earthiness to this one. You definitely get that at the back of the nose. So a little touch of herbal quality there as well, but a nice bright floral aromaticity. A little bit of grassiness on the front of the nose, a little touch kind of zesty if you like. And then you've got the typical kind of fruity elements that you would expect of a Pilsner beer. A little bit of a peary note, a little bit apricot-y, a little bit apple-y in a sense, and then some kind of lemony, grassy sort of notes as well. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this beer, I think, is really quite nice and very, very interesting. So yeah, it definitely gets a thumbs up from me. I think overall you've got what you'd expect from the hoppy side of things. You do get the kind of biscuity sort of sweetness underneath that you'd expect from the malty base, but the big yeasty notes in this are the kind of surprise in this beer for me. So yeah, this is definitely an interesting one, I would say. So yeah, take a little bit of time and ponder over the aroma before you get stuck into it. Yeasty side of this beer is really interesting and very, very nicely done, but I think it's about time that we try this beer. So this one is the Pilsnero, 5.2% German style Keller Pils from Panimoyhtiö Tuju in Lappeenranta in South Karelia in the southeast of Finland. Let's get stuck in. Slanje, skål, kipis, and thank you to Riku once again. Cheers. Oh yeah, that is pretty nice, I have to say. Yeah, I do like this one. Yeah. Yeah, first impression is the carbonation is just slightly overactive maybe, but you know, it is a more yeasty kind of, you know, it is a Keller Pilsner. You can get that from them sometimes, but flavour profile wise, that's a very well executed beer actually. Yeah, I really like this one. I mean, probably the closest beer I would have had to this would have been the unfiltered Pilsner that we had at Pilsner Urquell when I was at the brewery. So yeah, that's probably, you know, that's the closest thing I can think of to this beer actually. But it is a lovely, lovely beer, this for sure. So yeah, I'm just going to say, I think, yeah, well done to you for this. I'd be very curious to try some of their other Pilsners and things if they have them, and I'd love to see them do like a Munich style Helles or something. Smell a Vienna lager, I think, from these guys could be really interesting, because they seem to have the yeasty and the malty balance in this beer down to a T. So yeah, that could be a really interesting thing to see from these guys. So yeah, definitely worth it. But yeah, I'm glad that Riku picked this one out for me. I think this was a very good choice of beer for me, I have to say. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then and see how we get on. So straight away with this beer, you can feel that nice kind of soft white bready base just blanket the middle of your tongue there. If you go either side of the if you go either side of that kind of soft malty base, or you go either side of that soft kind of white bready sort of thing, then you know you've got a little bit of bread crust on either side actually. So in that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a little bit more of a kind of grainy bread crusty type thing out of the beer. But yeah, middle third of your palate, it's got a lovely soft white bready smoothness to it. Sitting on top of that, you'll get a few that you can feel in the very centre of your palate. There is there's a teeny little bit of a straight up caramel there, but as you move out from the centre of your palate, the beer gets distinctly kind of lighter, and it gets distinctly lighter and more sort of grassy, if you like. So yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, distinctly lighter, distinctly more kind of grassy, and yeah, I certainly like how that side of it goes about its business. So yeah, more. It's interesting, this one, because the yeast, as I say, the yeast kind of really brings out that round. So yeah, as you go, yeah, definitely centre your palate on top of that bread, a little bit more kind of caramelly notes in the middle of the palate, then more biscuity as you move out towards the edge of the tongue. But yeah, I think the yeast builds in this one the further you go into the palate with the beer, or the further you go into the aftertaste. Sorry, saying the brain's not working in this video, terrible. But yeah, I think this one, the yeastiness really comes out of the beer the further you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, middle third of your palate, soft white bready notes underneath, sweet caramelly notes there in the middle of the tongue, then a bit more biscuity as you go out towards the edge. If you go to that border region between middle third and back third of your tongue, as I said earlier, you get a bit more of a kind of bread crusty side to the beer, and then in the back third of your palate, it's quite a fluffy, you can feel the yeastiness of the beer really coming out a little bit more. So you've got a really thick kind of white bready note on that back third of your palate there. But I say thick, but it's kind of more light and fluffy, but it just feels, you know, bigger, if that makes sense. So if you start at the back of the palate, you've got quite a bit of thickness there, and as you go further forward, it kind of, the thickness just drops away. Then in the middle third of your tongue, again, you can feel the bread actually comes off as being a little bit more kind of fluffy, if that makes sense. But the yeasty characteristics of the beer make the transition in thickness really gradual across the back third and middle third of your tongue. So yeah, definitely Some interesting things going on here. The malt base is kind of exactly what you would expect, and obviously the yeast is contributing to that as well. But it's just a lovely, it's just a beautifully executed beer. So as I say, it gets a thumbs up from me. But yeah, I think it does work really, really well, this one. And you've got some really, you know, the hoppy qualities that you get with this beer just go together really nicely as well. So yeah, I think we don't really need to say much more about the yeasty side of this beer or the malty side of it. I think it does develop a tiny little bit of woodiness the further you go into the aftertaste, but that's quite minimal, to be honest with you. But yeah, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there, and as you move further forward, it develops a little bit of a kind of herbal quality. Then as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, it's a little bit more kind of floral and aromatic, if that makes sense. You do get a nice little bit of a floral aromaticity kind of coming out of the beer. So yeah, I do think that goes together really nicely. So yeah, definitely for me, the flavour profile that you're getting out of the hops here, I think it is, German Hallertau or Tittnanger or something like that. It could well be something a little bit stronger like Pearl or Hercules, whatever, but the thing that I think tells you that it's German hops is the brightness of the floral aromaticity, so you really get that nice brightness on the kind of front corners of the palate. For sure, but then yeah, around the front curve of the palate, there's that little bit of lighter kind of grassy sort of thing which you always expect, and it does have a wee touch of zestiness to it as well. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's German hops that are in this one actually. But yeah, the green component of this beer, the green side of things, is pretty much what you'd expect, but again, very nicely executed. So yeah, let's look at the fruity side of things then. So as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And then if you go to the to that border region again between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a bread crusty quality coming out of the beer. It does have just a wee touch more kind of graininess to it, but then there's a soft sort of yeasty kind of thing. There is a soft sort of yeasty kind of thing, that soft white bread, that's forming the basis of the fruity side of the beer. So yeah, if you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, there's a wee bit more of a kind of citrusy, zesty kind of thing there, and as you move further forward, it gets a little bit more peary. You do get a few kind of appley notes out of it, and as you reach the kind of front of the tongue, it becomes a little bit more lemony and grassy and things like that. So yeah, I do like how that side of things goes together in this beer. I mean, the fruity and the hoppy side of this beer, the fruity side of things and the green component are exactly what you would expect. The uniqueness of this beer for me is the yeasty component. But everything is kind of as you would expect. I've not had too many Keller Pilsners, but it is a nice style of beer, and it's something a wee bit different from these guys. So it'd be interesting to try a slightly more kind of, it would be interesting to try a slightly more kind of clean and straight up Pilsner from these guys, because the Keller Pils, I think, is a little bit more kind of unusual. So if they have got like a Munich Helles or a kind of straight up Pilsner or something, I'd be very interested to try that. But this one is really good, and it's mainly the main reason that I'm saying I would love to try the other ones is because this one is so good. So these guys know what they're doing when it comes to these Pilsner beers, so I would like to try more. If they've got Dunkels and Doppelbocks and Schwarzbiers and Vienna Lagers and stuff, I'd be curious to try those as well. Vienna Lager, I think, would be the next one I'd be most tempted to go for, but this is a very well done beer, so thumbs up to Tuju for this, absolutely. So yeah, let's kind of round off this review on the mouthfeel then. I think we've covered the flavour profile as much as we need to. But yeah, mouthfeel wise, for me, this beer is kind of bottom end of mid-bodied, top end of light-bodied. The carbonation is a little touch kind of overactive in this one, but that's, you're going to get that with more yeasty beers, but it does kind of mellow out a little bit the more that you drink of the beer, and it smoothens out the flavour, so that's not a big deal. So yeah, fairly active carbonation in this one, but overall mouthfeel of this beer I would say is still quite smooth. In terms of hoppy bitterness, In terms of hoppy bitterness, there is somewhere in the region of, I think maybe about 20-25 IBUs to this beer. The malty side of the beer, like I said, is very, very smooth. It's got a bit of thickness to it, and you've also got some really nice kind of sweet and biscuity components to it. And there's also a good little bit of fruitiness with this beer too. So yeah, a little bit of zestiness, I think. The fruits are mainly kind of oily, and I think that kind of suits the more yeasty nature of this beer. But overall, it's a really interesting one, this, and I'm glad that Riku sent me this beer. So again, Riku, thank you for making this review possible, and this has acted as a really nice intro to Panimoyhtiö Tuju. So hopefully we can review a few more of their beers at some point in the future, maybe one of their IPAs when they start canning or bottling or whatever. I wonder if these guys will scale up a little bit, because it seemed in the articles that Riku sent me that they were a bit reluctant to do that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how these guys progress, but they can certainly do a good lager beer, and I think I'll need to try one of their I will definitely need to try one of their New England IPAs at some point and see what those are like. But yeah, this was an interesting one, so let's leave it there. This was the Pilsnero, 5.2% Keller Pils from Panimoyhtiö Tuju in Lappeenranta in South Karelia in the southeast of Finland. A really interesting beer, this one, and I'm glad that I was able to review it for you here on the channel. So yeah, thank you again to Riku for making this review possible. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Tuju, and hopefully we can return to these guys at some point soon. And do let me know some other, like Munich Helles, Vienna lagers. Let me know some other lager beers, Schwarzbiers, Dunkels, Doppelbox, whatever. Let me know some other lager beers from Finland that you guys would like to see me review, because I've certainly enjoyed this one. And let me know what your favourite lager beer is from Tuju as well, and I'm sure we'll return to these guys at some point soon. Check out my social media, check out Panimoyhtiö Tuju's as well, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Sláinte, skål, kiitos, and kipis. Cheers, guys.